Well, good evening, everyone. Michael, soothing here. I thought tonight we would talk about a subject near and dear to my heart, which is, of course, beachcombing. We take a lot of walks on the local beaches, and we find things there. Sometimes it's trash from across the ocean. I don't like finding that so much, but we see many other interesting things. We've seen a baby octopus, which we put back into the water. All kinds of critters, of course, sand crabs. We see fish jumping out of the water on these walks, sea otters, harbor seals doing their thing. But we keep our eyes open for treasures that we want to find. One treasure, for example, Joanne has been looking for a long time for a perfect sand dollar because they're always broken on our local beach, the sand dollars. They always seem to be broken, and she finally found one. Here it is. This one was not broken. It was in perfect condition. They're always, normally when we find them, either busted out the back here or broken out on the top. But this one was perfect, as you can see. So that was a nice find. By the way, that's the sand dollar's mouth right there. So don't get too close. You wouldn't want to be swallowed by a sand dollar. And this is the sand dollar's excretory butt region, believe it or not, that little hole right there. Okay, so even a sand dollar has an in and an out, okay? But in fact, I was going to tell you a couple of important facts about sand dollars. I'll refer to a couple of notes I wrote down about them. The sand dollar for my New Zealand subbies, of which I do have a handful, believe it or not, are called, tell me now, you Kiwis, if I'm correct about this, they're called a sea cookie or a snapper biscuit. Okay, you all needed to know that. And the Spanish call these down in the South Americas, they call this, now I can't read my own writing, but it's something like galleta de mar, which means sea cookie. All right, so this shell, of course, is made out of calcium carbonate, but it's not very hard. It breaks fairly easily. So I have to be careful. Joanne wants to reinforce this one by putting rosin on it so that it won't break. Maybe we can make it into a hanging thing for one of the windows or something like that. And she loves natural objects. Being an island girl herself, she made, like for example, we didn't drill or do anything to this shell we found, but she wanted to make it into a necklace. So we just threaded a silver chain through a couple of holes on this thing. See, it's empty chambers on the back. And voila, natural necklace that nothing has been done to or altered, really, in any way. But back to our friend, the sand dollar. What else do we know? Of course, we have a radial symmetry, but what kind of critter is this? Well, it's actually a type of sort of flattened sea urchin. It lives a little deeper than the ones we're used to seeing in the tide pools, those purple spiny ones. The sand dollar lives a little, and they like flat, sandy areas instead of rocky areas, you know. Here's a little interesting tidbit you need to know. The larvae of sand dollars, the little tiny baby sand dollars, they can clone themselves as a strategy to survive predators. And when they clone themselves, they make two identical little sand dollars that are half the size of the original before they start growing again. Okay, interesting little fact. They eat basically algae and plankton and diatoms and stuff like that, straining them out of the sand as they creep along the bottom, moving their set of tiny little spines. They're kind of stickery. So now you know just a tiny bit more about sand dollars. I won't go deeply into the science of them beyond that. What are some of the other things we've been finding? Just on the last couple of weeks, in fact, just a couple of days ago, we had some finds I will show you. Do I have my flashlight? I'm always trying to show you with a flashlight. Here is a sugar agate, because it looks kind of like a lump of sugar. And if I light it up, let's see if I can get it. Oh, sorry about that. Indirectly, you see it. It's a brilliant little gem once it's lit up. Sorry if I blasted you with light. I don't want to wake you up or anything. Here's another nice agate. See that one? A banded agate. See if we can light it from above. Oh yeah, that's the way to do it. We'll light these from above. I finally have a way to light my agates for you. Just figured it out this very moment. So you were part of agate lighting history here. This is a carnelian agate we just found. Hard to find this time of year, but you can see it's a beautiful orange color. And here is another one that we found on the beaches. There you go, see? Another carnelian agate. But I've showed you agates like this before. So let me show you some of the other things we have been finding on the beach. There's a wide variety of shells. I like these scallops with the color bands on them, whereas a lot of them are just plain, like this one, plain shells. I should just show you some of the stuff that we found, you know, as we were hunting. This is just a sampling of a few of the stuff. I haven't been able to tumble it or do anything with it yet. That lighting's no good, but it's kind of fun to just sort through them and look at them with various little sources of light. You know how when you go into a black light room and then you turn on the light and you see things you couldn't see before? Well, that's what I like to do with some of these stones and agates. This one, for example, looks kind of boring, right? But when you light it up, it becomes a lot more interesting. It's like amber, almost. In fact, there are agates that have a similarity to amber in that they can have an inclusion in them, even water inside, which is very rare. The agate is a very hard substance. Here's a big piece of quartz. It's not an agate at all, but I'll show you that it still lights up a pretty interesting color because it's got a little bit of yellow in it. But anyway, I like to go through these and sort through them, check them out, and sort them into different types for tumbling in the tumbler. None of these are tumbled yet. These are all raw form. This one actually looks like it's been tumbled already. See, it's a little shiny, but it hasn't. That's just the ocean that did a job on this guy. It must have rolled around out there for many hundreds of years, or at least many years, in order to get that smooth, shiny effect. Most of the agates are more raw form. They can be shiny on the surface, but they're usually kind of raw like this. They haven't been smoothed out yet. But yeah, we find a variety of jaspers, petrified wood, agates, carnelians, some quartzes that are attractive that we'll keep, and on in that vein. Sometimes I find an interesting specimen, some kind of rock, and I have no idea what it is, but I keep it because it's so much different than everything else. So I have some like that. What else do we find? Well, we find sea glass. The area we live in is not noted for sea glass, and so I don't find a lot of it. And sometimes the pieces I find are not mature yet, so they need more tumbling out there in the sand and the surf. Like this blue piece, right? It needs to tumble some more, or even this green one. Pretty, but it could use a little more time in the surf. There's a way to make sea glass. Look at this big thick piece I found. I have no idea what a piece like this might have come from. It doesn't look like it could have come from a bottle. But I believe it is glass, unless it's a really cool piece of quartz crystal, which is certainly possible. Maybe that's what that is. I'm going to have to examine it more closely now. But here's some mature sea glass. I'll show you what it looks like when it's been tumbling around out there in the ocean for quite a while, getting smoothed out. Generally, sea glass is somewhere between 50 and 100 years old or so. Here's some mature pieces. Now let's see what they look like if I light them up. If I can do that from above, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'd have to hold them up separately, like this sea glass that's this color. I would have to light from above like that. Sort of a root beer color, right? It's usually about 50 to 100 years old. And the reason I say that is that back when we were too stupid to know better, I would say more like it's 50 to 150 years old. There are small towns along the coast where they used to throw all their stuff, their garbage and junk, into the ocean. And they just didn't know any better. They thought the ocean was a virtually endless, infinite body of water that would just carry that stuff away. And I suppose that was true for some of it. But the bottles, they used cans back then, but the cans have probably all corroded away by now and disappeared. However, the bottles would break up on the bottom into pieces, being beaten around in the surf and the rocks. And they would get broken into smaller and smaller pieces. And over the years, they get moved all around in the sand and abraded, and eventually they become kind of like little sea gems. So if you're close to a town that used to throw their stuff in the water long ago, like say Fort Bragg, California, on the northern California coast, they had a lot of sea glass there. They still have some, but most of it's been picked up by sea glass hunters now. And there's no new sea glass being made because we don't throw our stuff in the water anymore. And we really don't use bottles very much anymore either. Back then, almost everything came in a bottle if it was liquid form. Medicine, any kind of soda, drinks, whatever it was, came in a bottle or a glass jar. So, or in cans, but those are gone, like I said. So, this stuff's pretty old. It's been around a while, and it's kind of fun to find it. Little mature pieces. It's traveled from someplace. If you find it on the beach like this, it's come from some town somewhere along the coast. That one looks brown, right? But it's really sort of a root beer color if you light it up. Light color. I like to find green, but I really like to find blue or purple. That's the most rare types. But what else do we find along the shore? Well, we find all kinds of strange clam shells, like this one. I've never seen one quite like this one, so I picked it up. It's a very odd and irregular shape. By the way, back to sea glass for a moment. Beware if you find it in a store, because it's easy to make it artificially. You just bust up a bunch of glass and run it in a tumbler for a couple days with some fine grit. An expert could tell the difference between real sea glass and artificially made sea glass. But anyway, back to the shells. We find some of these, which are interesting spiral-shaped shells and they come in different varieties and colors. Then you've got here's a spiral that's sort of this one can be quite attractive, but they're usually broken in some way, like the sand dollar. See? It's broken in the back there. I like to try to find these in perfect condition. Here's see this scallop that I showed you before. By contrast, here's a little tiny scallop shell. See? I'll hold it up close so you can see it. It's always interesting to find a little baby specimen of something, right? For contrast, I will eventually do marine related, sea and ocean related artwork. I'm going to make a couple of art scenes, and I'm going to make them a little bit multimedia by including some things in the bottom. Like if I have an underwater scene, I'll put actual shells in sea glass and meld that in to become a part of my artwork. So here's a little group of shells we found the other day. I was putting one in another, in another, in another. So there's a little stack. I found all of those during one walk, but they're all kind of similar. Whoops. I hope I don't break anything, especially the sand dollar. You can see their scallops. And then this guy, whatever this is, Here's a very lumpy little clam that looks like those giant clams you see with the two big halves that will clamp down on you if you're a diver and you stick your hand in one, and you will drown. So next time you're out diving and you see a clam that's about, 20 times this size with the two halves open, don't stick your hand in, okay? Just a little safety tip that I know you can use in the future. Here's a nice smooth. We see a lot of oyster shells and scallops and a lot of big clams that people like to catch along the coast for eating. Purple varnish clams, pismo clams, and things like that. I don't keep those shells because they're big and there's lots of them. And what are you going to do with them, right? Let's see what else here. What's this thing? I think this is a great big... Well, we almost dropped it. I almost dropped it on the fragile sand dollar. Boy, would I be in trouble. She spent a year hunting the beaches to get one of these like this. This one's kind of heavy. I think there's still sand inside of it. Anyway, I was going to show you this. I don't know what it looks like when it's lit up, but let's find out. Oh, interesting. It's got some kind of stuff inside. I don't know what. But yeah, we like to walk. We walked today, even though it was raining, but it got a little wet and nasty out there. We've seen some amazing things on the beaches of the Oregon coast. Bald eagles, ospreys, lots of pelicans, of course, and an occasional UFO. That's always interesting as it becomes nighttime, right? There's a Coast Guard chopper that flies around out there, but that's not the UFO to which I refer. Also, you can see the bright lights of fishing boats that look really odd on the horizon. They look a little UFO-ish because you'll just see this bright little light out there right on the horizon. It's kind of interesting to spot them. It's almost winter, so the big storms are coming soon, and the better beachcombing happens in late winter. When we walked today, the sand has been piled up so much by the long summer that it's many, many feet deep, deeper than it was in the winter time. And then when winter comes, these giant waves come in, and these big Pacific storms, and they wash all that sand away. And then the next summer, when the gentle waves are there, it piles back up again. It's a pattern that repeats every year. But every beach changes, also constantly shifting in different ways, from week to week, day to day, and year to year. There's an interesting little specimen of something, and I have no idea what it is. I like to rifle through these, and I think it makes a nice sound. Maybe I'll just do that for a moment, since my voice is starting to go. It's kind of stimmy-ish, don't you think? I really love this one. This one is so cool. Joanne found this one. She will want me to give her full credit. This nice carnelian too. This is, I said I was going to shut up, and yet here I am still talking. I'm supposed to just rifle through these quietly. That's what I told myself to do. I'm not able to follow my own instruction. This is called a banded agate. Banded. And it's the kind that Oregon agate hunters really like to find. It's called banded because it's got these bands that form it. Let's see if we can light it up. If you can see the bands, yes, here we are. It's easier to see this way. So, that's a premium, considered a premium agate. This is, of course, a piece of jasper with a quartz inclusion in it. I like jaspers that have features. I think I mentioned that before. Here is a very rare blue agate. That is a beauty. I have to set it aside somewhere. These are very hard to find, like this. Okay, blue agate. They usually look a little different than that. They look more like a banded agate. That's a rare find, but this is what we enjoy. But you know, we're out there getting exercise while we're doing this, so it's good. And I've always loved the ocean, everything about it, pretty much. I love fishing, but I also love the wildlife. When I was young and in high school, like 90% of you out there that went to school on the West Coast, I said, oh, I'm going to become a marine biologist, right? But of course there's very few positions for actual marine biologists. So, and many would like to go into that field. So I think there's probably one job for every 500 who would like to do it. But don't let that stop you if you have aspirations to be one. You have to pursue your dreams if you can, but also have a backup plan, right? So I ended up in aerospace, rocket science, and if I had it all to do over, I think maybe I would have gone into law or into the ministry, one or the other. But anyway, not that there's any similarity between those two, because there is not. I was gonna do a video sometime where I eat this little mango pineapple pie and tell you how it tastes, but I'm not gonna be able to make that video. The reason being, in the last few days, I've come down with a bad case of what's called diabetic retinopathy. And what that is you can actually go blind if your blood sugar's too high. And one of the first signs is you see all of these floating things in front of your eyes, which makes things fuzzy also. I'll explain to you what that is when I do an ophthalmologist role play video, which I will do in a few weeks or months when I successfully get these floaters to go away. But anyway, the cure for this is simple now that I know what it is. I have to get hyper extreme about getting my blood sugar low and keeping it low. So I have now started on a highly carb and sugar restricted diet, which is also low fat, and ramped up the exercise level. When I succeed at curing this condition, which I will succeed at because eyesight is very important to me, then how would I make videos for you if I can't see anything, right? So I will get it under control, more than under control. Then I will make an ophthalmologist role play video for you so that all of you will be forewarned not to ever let this develop in your life. But anyway, Joanne can use this maybe in one of her videos. I'm not really tempted by the stuff she eats on her videos. She mostly does mukbang ASMR, but she eats stuff like this. She tries things like Peeps, right? They don't tempt me because I'm really only tempted by chocolate. So it's not just, well, I'm tempted by many things that are bad for me that fall into the carb, high calorie, sugar, and chocolate category. Donuts, cakes, cookies, chocolate chip cookies in particular, brownies, ice cream, hoagies, burgers, all the stuff you learn to love as a kid, but you can't eat as an adult. So all that is going away, and I'm going to just eat styrofoam for the next few months. Like rice cakes and stuff. No, not even that. It's rice turns into sugar instantly in your system. No, I'm going to eat things like chicken and salad and tuna, beef and eggs and veggies, lots of veggies. Some fruit, but not the high sugar fruit. So that's my life. I might as well jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, but because I'm kind of a foodie, but if I can get the blood sugar totally under control. Why am I talking about this now? This was supposed to be about beachcombing. So let me stop with all this nonsense about sugar, and instead we'll close it off for now. Sea glass. I love sea glass. All the stuff that comes from the ocean. We'll close it off for now. And I will just mention, do not ASMR and drive, okay? Now till the next time, behave. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you're asleep by now, actually. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Take care, everyone.